And before I get to my guest, who's going to be joining us at 9 o'clock, I definitely want to hit this story. Mark, yesterday, him and I had this conversation about the ethnic cleansing taking place in Gaza. And for anybody who is a Trump supporter, who is saying, well, wait a minute, why are you calling it ethnic cleansing? Okay, well, don't take my word for it. Take Trump's word for it. Right here. In an interview Donald Trump had, I don't know who this interview was with, but Trump says the quiet part out loud. There's no more discussion about whether or not this is ethnic cleansing. It is literally ethnic cleansing. This is Trump.
Where they are, where all of this stained people will build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2, but we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are, where all of this danger is. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians
no
have the
big
right
money
to return?
spent. No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building.
Will the Palestinians have the right to return? No. He said no. Quiet part out loud. Will the Palestinians, who you are talking about forcibly removing into Jordan or into Egypt, after you build your big, beautiful properties, after, you make your great skyline, your waterway, your New Monica, or whatever they call it, will the people who live there be able to come back? Trump's answer, no. It doesn't matter what comes after that. His answer was no. So you are removing millions of people in Gaza and the West Bank, forcibly so, because it would have to be forcibly so, because they're not leaving on their own volition. And you are now saying, after we move them out, they will not be able to come back. That is called, by definition, ethnic cleansing. You are cleaning an area of a particular ethnicity, in this case, the Palestinian population that lives there, and you're doing so on behalf of Israel. Call it what it is. Call it what it is. And again, just to play it, don't take my word for it, Brett Baer asks the operative question, will the people who you are forcibly removing be able to come back to their territory after you build your big, beautiful properties?
We'll build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2, but we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are, where all of this danger is. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
Spent. No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about.
I understand Trump's argument. And there's a logic of putting it in these kind of humanitarian terms, right? Well, everything has been destroyed. There's nothing there for them to go to anyway. So why would they want to stay in these horrible, dilapidated conditions when 80 to 90% of the buildings have just been fundamentally turned to glass? Why would they want to go back to that? It's heartfelt. It's humanitarian, right? We care about the plight of the Palestinians. The position that they're in is so outrageous. And because it's so outrageous, I have an idea. Why don't we just move everybody out and move them elsewhere? We could put them in Egypt. We could put them in Jordan. There's already 60% of the people in Jordan Palestinians. This is great. Zero issue with this. That's his argument. So if you're talking to somebody who is just rando on the street, they would say, well, what's wrong with that argument? They are living in dilapidated conditions in this point. Israel has destroyed the hospitals and the territories, especially in northern Gaza. All of that is true. So how is it a bad thing? They don't want to go. You're moving and forcibly removing a community and a population under a guise of humanitarianism, when the people who you are effectively working with and giving bombs to is creating a humanitarian crisis in the first place. You're creating a disaster. And on top of creating a disaster, saying, well, the solution to this is to just forcibly remove the entire population out of the way and let Israel effectively take the territory. We'll find stuff and places for these millions of refugees. But we're going to build this up. It's going to look great. I'm going to own it. We may sell parts of it off to other Arab leaders. This is going to be a fantastic plan, and we love the Palestinian population, and we're doing it for the Palestinian population. That's his argument. This, by the way, was exactly what Joe Biden wanted to do. And there's a question of, okay, well, is Trump fulfilling, or is a stronger Joe Biden than what Joe Biden was? Whereas Joe Biden wasn't willing to go to certain lengths, at the very least not in the open, Trump is. For example, this. This is exactly what Mark said yesterday. Trump says he could cut aid to Jordan and Egypt over Gaza development plan. Effectively, either you take the population in the way that I want you to take the population in, and you shut up about it, or the aid that you get from us is going to go away. Is this enough in order to get these populations to effectively do something that they themselves believe is clearly not in their own best interest as countries to do? We will find out. Mark seems to believe that the answer is yes. That for all of the bellyaching that Jordan and Egypt may make in the open, in reality that they are, what do you call them, quislings. They are effectively vassals of the U.S. government. And we do, as the U.S. government tells them to do, if the U.S. government puts pressure on them to do so. Now, if you remember, the money that Donald Trump froze did not include Egypt and Israel. Those were the two that were spared from any kind of spending freeze from the U.S. government. So Egypt continues to get taxpayer revenue, and will threats to that taxpayer revenue get Egypt to fall in line? That is the question. That is the question. The U.S. believes that the answer is yes. Or at the very least, Mark believes the answer is yes. Trump believes that the answer is yes. And Trump is even going forward with conversations to these governments in the Arab community about folding over on this very specific front. Now, there's a secondary question to all of this, that even if Egypt and Jordan says yes, how do you do it? How do you do that? How's it not chaos? Now, as Mark puts it, the Israeli military has been force marching millions of Palestinians for the last year, where you would get 1.5 million people and move them to a tiny area. And from Mark's point is, well, they would do the same thing this time around. It would be the same force march, this killing and bombing anything in a particular area in order to force people out that area into a different location, to starve anything that is in that area, to force people out into a particular location, and to do so all the way to the border of Egypt and into Egypt proper. That is going to be gruesome, to put it mildly. Completely and utterly and entirely gruesome. But this entire conflict for the last year has been gruesome. We're talking about 100,000 people being slaughtered. And even if you're looking at just the documented number of people, you're still talking about 40, 50,000 people, 2/3 of which are women and children. So is gruesomeness enough to prevent this outcome? No. Let's be honest. No, it's not. It's been gruesome the entire way through. So no, gruesomeness is not the backstop to this eventuality taking place. And more to the point, Trump seems to be thoroughly enthused about this particular plan, and it's going to give Netanyahu any and everything he wants to create this greater Israel from the river to the sea. Meaning, even if it destabilizes Jordan, Israel does not care. And I wager to you, Trump does not care. Even if it destabilizes Egypt to some level, Israel does not care. Trump does not care. So is there a downside to this from the Trump's point of view? The American public doesn't seem to care. Israel, who's given Trump all of this money through their proxies, loves it. Trump has just given them all of these bombs. Trump has just gotten them their hostages back. So all of this stuff is effectively playing out at once. We'll see. I mean, this is really going to be one of those things of reality asserting itself, whether or not they're going to be able to pull this off, and whether or not Trump has the leverage that he thinks he has in order to make this work. I would give it to him that he does have leverage in many of these fights that he's getting involved in, but there is something to say about getting involved in too many fights at once, simultaneously, which is effectively what he is doing. I mean, he's in a pissing match with the world at this point, especially in regards to Europe, and especially in regards to, in this case, the Middle East. We'll see what happens. I'm fascinated by it. When I point out that he is testing presidential power, I mean it. The other thing, an issue that's dropping at this moment, meaning you make a quote-unquote ceasefire. And everybody had qualms with that ceasefire because it felt like it wasn't going to be a real ceasefire. I mean, yeah, you've got Netanyahu to agree to something that he blew off months ago, but now the other shoe drops where you realize, okay, he's trying to forcibly expel the entire population. He just wanted the hostages back before doing so. So now that you say, okay, we want our hostages back, we get the majority of our hostages back. Now it's, oh, by the way, we're going to ethnically cleanse all of these areas. Just so you know. Hamas points out, wait a minute, that is not what we agreed upon. And not just not what we agreed upon, Israel is not fulfilling the obligations of the ceasefire. All right. Trump, just like other American presidents, not an honest actor on this, comes out, doesn't care that Israel is not fulfilling the obligations of the ceasefire. In fact, the expectation probably was that they were never going to be honored in real terms. Because after all, the plan was to forcibly evacuate the entirety of the population. So why would you need to honor a ceasefire if that is going to be your ultimate goal, to ethnically cleanse the area? We're going to solve the issue by expelling the entirety of the population. Now, I have pointed this out once before because on my radio position, I've had the opportunity to have interviews with people from Israel or who are advocates for Israel. And I would ask them, okay, well, what is your outcome, right? You don't believe in a two-state solution. You don't believe in a one-state solution. And you have all of these people there. Okay, well, obviously, you have two outs. We need to kill everybody, meaning we need to murder 1.4 million people and just take it all. Or we need to expel all of these people from the area. Those are your only two outs. They've seemed to come up with a choice of a little bit of both, killing and expelling. Trump, when confronted with Hamas saying, we're not going to release these hostages anymore because Israel is not attending to the deal, Trump comes out and says this.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that be because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday. And if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock. And after that, I would say all hell is going to break out. Well, I would.
All hell is going to break out. And let's be very clear, this is after Trump has been delivering, 2,000-pound bombs, all of these missiles, replenishing the Israeli military. So the ceasefire just seemed to be a ploy in order to allow Israel to refill its armaments in order for this push of evacuation, this kind of push of the Palestinian solution, that Palestinian solution being to expel, put people, I don't know how they're going to do it, on trains, buses, or have those people to force march out of the area. Final solution for the Palestinian population. What would the rest of the Muslim community do? What are they going to do? They've stood by and watched these people get slaughtered for the past year. And now, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, after watching all of these people get slaughtered for over a year, are now like, whoa, we don't like this. This is not in the car. This is not something that we want to see take place. This is not something we want to see happen. Okay. But they said that all the way through, and they've done nothing about it. So it's like, okay, yeah, you are complaining in the same way that you've complained over the course of the last year. Fair enough. That sounds great. Trump is still going to push through and push forward with what he wants to do on this issue. And Hamas, from their point of view, well, wait a minute. If you're going to ethnically cleanse the area, then why are we giving you the hostages? It's that, right? That's the scale. That was the point. Hey, let's have the ceasefire. Let's exchange these hostages. But at no point was there this notion that you couldn't resume attacks, resume fighting. And in this case, the fighting seems that it's going to resume. And it's going to resume for the very specific reason that Trump is trying to ethnically cleanse the area. Just astonishing. And his take is, effectively, all hell is going to break loose with the bombs that I have delivered, that he himself gave over currently. What's wild about this is when this first came out that Trump was able to get a ceasefire and was able to push the Netanyahu government into doing it, either with a carrot or a stick, and I suppose that was the way he did it, or he was just completely obsequious, which he probably was. And there's this question about the Biden administration, because it was clear as day that the Netanyahu government seemed to be doing any and everything to emasculate Joe Biden. And Joe Biden sat there and allowed him to do it over and over and over again. A U.S. president who was paying for 70% of all of the killing that was taking place in that region was effectively told no. Effectively told no. Thank you for the weapons. Thank you for the bullets. Thank you for the guns. Thank you for the intelligence. Thank you for the assets that you have on the ground. We appreciate all of that. What are you asking me for? No. Just no. And being perfectly confident that the president of the U.S., who's giving all of the stuff, including diplomatic protection, had no recourse to do anything about it. That is astonishing. It's more astonishing when you accept that Netanyahu preferred Trump being in that office. Now, whether Netanyahu understood the lengths, the obsequiousness that Trump was going to show in lieu of the money that he was getting from Israeli sources, who knows? Who knows? He might have been just happy with the West Bank. Trump seems to be giving it all away. And again, this goes to the notion of, does the president have the power to do this? It doesn't seem to matter whether or not power is taken, not necessarily given. And in this very specific case, he's taken it. He's going to have a compliant Congress. And on top of having a compliant Congress, he's going to have an Israeli military that is perfectly willing to kill, maim, shoot, starve whoever's in their way to accomplish that objective. Just outright astonishing. Outright astonishing. We are going to see the limits of presidential power. And I think that's what we are viewing. And right now, there's a compliant Congress. And so that compliant Congress has effectively allowed the president to do whatever he wanted. Are there limits to that? That is going to be the part that we're going to find out, and we're going to find it out together.